So let me start off. Here's I'm not going to do this the regular way because this is such a for people who look like me. This is such a controversial thing because a lot of people don't understand why today, June 19th, is considered a federal holiday and not other days. So I have this whole theory that I was thinking about as I was getting agitated because I was born in Mississippi, raised in Tennessee. I didn't hear about Juneteenth when I was in school, high school or college. I heard about it afterwards. I had to do a little reading. Like, what's the significance of today? Why is this so important to Black people? Because like some of us, I see people decked out Juneteenth, you know, African colors. They're that is the Bring Your Power Back Network. Voices of Venus, Love Joneson, and I am Chill's X. I am ChillsX.com. I didn't put myself up today because I do have a Patreon, I do have a YouTube. Please subscribe to my YouTube. In fact, that's all I actually want you to do today. Let me do that. Let me get my YouTube up. If you could please subscribe. It is free to subscribe to my YouTube. Bang, post, and pin. All right, please subscribe to my YouTube. It's free. This content that we have here is going to be more financial content. That's what I'll do. I'll do a history day, a financial day, and then 2 days talking about relationship, couples, life, blah blah blah. That's how I'll do it. That's the official breakdown. 1 finance, 1 history, and then 2 for the potential myths. Hey, Kate lady, take your power back, Blue. I have no problem with that, Judy B. Okay, please subscribe to my YouTube at Unfiltered Polo Blu, youtube.com at Unfiltered Polo Blu. Anyway, all right, so let's start. Like I said, I'm so happy to talk about this. I don't know if you can see my eyes smiling, and I'm elated to give you this information. Some of the things if there's anybody else who loves history like I do and is a historian and has their opinions about how things happen or how they went down, I invite you to come on. But this might not be one where I have a whole lot of guests. It's going to be reading information and telling you how things happened back in the day and how they affect us today. And then, unfortunately, there's going to be at the end, I'm going to tell you what I think about Juneteenth and what it really means and why it's happening. Because if this is what I want you to think about. They gave us Black History Month years back in the 80s. They gave us Martin Luther King Day, right? That was just for him based on his sacrifice. But then they come up with this after we were complaining about reparations. And all states don't acknowledge in 23, all states don't enforce, let me say that, they don't enforce Martin Luther King Day as a day that you have to take off that is observed. If you look it up, there's states that do not observe Martin Luther King's birthday, the second or third, it's not his actual day, but this is observed on that second or third Monday. Some do not observe it just because they want to be difficult. Okay, so let's get going into this Juneteenth versus the 13th Amendment, the significance of both, what they mean to us, why they're here, and all those good things. All right, so first we have to start third Monday. Thank you, Casey Vinny. Third Monday in January. All right. So first we have to start, I'm smiling because Casey Vinny. We have to start with the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay. So people have heard this, and if you read in your history books, oftentimes they say that Abraham Lincoln gets credit. The reason, so here's a quick little fun fact. The reason that Abraham Lincoln is on a penny and he's faced opposite of all the other presidents that are on silver-looking material coins, like they're not, the nickel, quarter, dime, $50, all those, he's facing the opposite way. I don't know if you ever knew this, and it's on a penny. Because he initiated freeing the slaves, and so many people were mad when they made the coins to recognize him. They made him face the other way because he turned his back on the Anglo-Saxons by helping free the slaves. Okay, that said, sorry, that's bullshit. The Emancipation Proclamation did not free the slave. Let me read it. Let me read this excerpt from, I'm at archives.com. I'm sure you can find this anywhere if you Google. I just quickly Google the Emancipation Proclamation, and facing a different direction. That's what I'm saying. He's facing a different direction because they're saying that he turned his back on the white people by helping free the slaves. I'm gonna read this quick excerpt. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Just look at your coins. He's the only one not facing the same way as the other white men on the coins. Okay, take away Sacagawea on the gold dollar. You know, that's not in circulation 100%, but currently, just think, you see penny, nickel, dime, quarter, always in circulation. $half with the Kennedy head, not always in circulation. The gold dollars with Sacagawea and the other one not in circulation. They bullshitted us and said they were going to give us the $20 bill with Harry Tubman. I still hadn't seen that thing yet. That's just me. Don't know the intention, but it looks purposeful. It is, sir. Listen, this is the gospel according to Blue. You know I'm not going to lead you wrong. This is the way. All right. So President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, as the nation approached its third year of the bloody Civil War. The proclamation declared, and I quote, that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states, the Confederate South, are and henceforth shall be free. Okay, let me tell you what that means. So I don't need to read the whole Emancipation Proclamation because it's bullshit. You said, why are you saying it's bullshit? So hopefully everybody knows and understands that during the Civil War, the war was not only about the freedom of the slaves, but just who has the power in the country. So the South is Virginia down, the Mason-Dixon line, Virginia down, all the way across to Kentucky, and over to Missouri. Kansas was a free state. Missouri was a slave state, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not going to look that up. That's not important for this point. So all the southern states, that's what Lincoln is talking about. All these southern states signed documentation saying we're no longer part of the United States, or AKA the Union. We are now part of the Confederate States of America. I got to show y'all something. We're now part of the Confederate States of America. You're going to laugh at this. This is the funniest thing as I look and love history. So then Jefferson Davis, hold on 1 second, bear with me. Bear with me. Okay. All right, so I got it. Good evening all. We're having a history lesson today. So if you're here for the whole other combo. We're having a history lesson here today on Juneteenth. Okay, so I just told you about the Emancipation Proclamation. He didn't remind you, king shit, the North still had slaves. The whole nation only knew parts of New York and certain places they didn't have slavery as much. They had more indentured servants, which were white people. There were not that many black people who had the opportunity to be indentured servants versus being slaves. There is a large difference. So anybody wants to test me on that, I had fun with that one time. Hey, Auntie. All right, so what I'm about to show you, so Confederate States signed, all those states, they grew, they seceded is what they call it. They said, hey, we're no longer affiliated with you. We're going to do our own thing. We now have a president and a vice president. The vice president was Jefferson Davis, never forget that name. The vice president was Alexander H. Stephens. Now, this guy looks like a fucking villain. I bullshit you not. Alexander H. Stephens, vice president of the Confederate States of America, looks like a fucking villain. That guy is the vice president. He looks like he has a sinister voice, and he just looks like a bad guy. Now, you know, Jefferson Davis don't look like that, but if I looked at his picture, I was like, man, that dude looked like he's an evil villain, and he was. So, anyway, so Abraham Lincoln, president, he said, hey, all the slaves that are in the Confederate States of America, y'all are free. But that's like me telling you how to cook your food and run your checking account. I told you, like, we were in a relationship and you left me alone. I'm not dealing with you no more. But then I'm going to tell you what you can and can't do. It don't work like that. So he didn't free the slaves in the North, which you were actually controlling. He freed the slaves in the South as a paper mache. It was not real. It didn't affect anything. And then to further expound on that, let me tell you how I know it didn't affect anything. When they signed, hold on, let me look it up. Apparatchiks. Appomattox courthouse date. Okay. This is very important. Okay, so the war was almost over, right? The South had ran out of funds. A lot of them quit. A lot of them went home. They kept on signing stuff that say that if you have so many slaves, you don't have to fight. So it was still a rich versus poor war. And if you had every 20 slaves, then your son didn't have to fight. You had 40 slaves, 2 kids didn't have to fight. 60 slaves, 3 kids didn't have to fight, and they can go home and they just tend to the crops or whatever. So Appomattox Courthouse was signed between U.S. Grant and Robert E. Lee. And the funny thing about U.S. Grant, who became to be a 2-term president, and so his name was Ulysses S. Grant, but his nickname, damn it, I forgot it. Never mind. I don't know what that means. Anyway, so they signed at Appomattox Courthouse. That was April 9th, 1865. They'd already signed the 13th Amendment on January 31st, 1865. The war wasn't fully over, but it was pretty much done. But they signed that then. But that didn't take effect of all the slaves being fully freed. Okay, so we got April, May, June. So let's just say, hypothetically, after April 9th, when Robert E. Lee finally signed away at Appomattox Courthouse, say, hey, we ain't gonna fight no more, you won, you got us, okay? Then it was already signed into law that we're gonna free the slaves because they realized the North was gonna win, and part of the things that they were fighting for was to abolish slavery. So that's great. So April 9th, we're gonna use that as a pin date, put a pin in it, April 9th. So April 9th, May 9th, June 9th. So 2 more months. So from the time they signed on January 31st to April 9th, it was signed, but it wasn't official because the war was still going on. Remember, there was a lot of Buffalo Soldiers. There's a lot of, like the movie Glory, there's a lot of regiments that are all black. And so they're helping to fight to try to win the war. 0409. Yes, 040965. 040965. Going to find you on YouTube and subscribe. Thank you. Please, again, subscribe. It's free. YouTube.com at Unfiltered Polo Blu. YouTube.com at Unfiltered Polo Blu. All right, so April 9th, 4/9/1865. So the importance, so the 13th Amendment, this is what somebody said today, and it was very concerning. They don't appreciate the 13th Amendment. Juneteenth is a big deal. I don't see how that's possible because the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. Yes, there is something in there. So even on the part that I have it pulled up on the 13th Amendment here, and they talk about Emancipation Proclamation. Doesn't do shit for me. I'm sorry. I've been saying that since I was in college. Once I read it and I saw that it said it only freeing the Southern slaves, which are part of the Confederate South, did not free the Northern slaves. Anytime somebody says that, they're like, where you come from? How you just all of a sudden get mad? Because it's a lie. I remember in history in school, they said, and Abraham freed the slaves 1863 with the Emancipation Proclamation. Bullshit. Wasn't it ratified December 9th, 1865? But the ratification doesn't take the fact that those are the 2 days that I was going to say. The days that we really should celebrate are January 31st and December 9th, 1865. Those are the days that are really big. Let's talk about Juneteenth. June 19th, 1865. All right. Let me make sure I'm at the right place. The 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution provide that neither slave nor involuntary servitude except for the punishment for crime whereof the party shall be been duly convicted shall exist within the United States of America, any subject of jurisdiction. So that's the part that they're saying that Kanye wanted to take out. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But this is not giving me the information I want. Hold on one second. I want to give you the real good information. I don't want to bullshit you. Because I want you to be able to say, oh, yeah, this is correct. And I don't even care when Lincoln died, because they don't do nothing for me. I know that's not nice. Oh, I'm not on that. Hold on. What is this? Okay, there we go. So Juneteenth. All right. But not everyone in the Confederate territory would immediately be free, even though the emancipation bullshit was made effective in 1863, did not affect anybody. You telling me that we're going to war and they freed the slaves? No, they had them still doing stuff, farming land, making guns, supplying ammunition. Some of the Confederate owners made their slaves be drummers. They were participants in the war to fight against the North, and they didn't have a choice. Hey, Sugar Shay. Hey, Tisha. Delaware didn't ratify till 1901. Yeah, but they let them go. Could not be implemented in places still under Confederate control as a result of the westernmost Confederate state of Texas. Enslaved people would not be free till much later. Freedom finally came on June 19, 1865, when some 2,000 Union troops arrived at Galveston Bay, Texas. The Army announced that there were more than 250,000 enslaved black people in the state were free by executive decree. The day came to be known as Juneteenth by the newly freed people in Texas. Okay, let me read that for one more time for people in the back. Juneteenth is this right here. This is why we celebrate this. This has nothing to do with being actually freed or verifying ratification. This is not the sign date. This is not the ratification date. This is when, let me read it again. I'm going to skip the Emancipation Proclamation. As a result, in the westernmost Confederate state of Texas, enslaved people would not be free until much later. Freedom finally came on June 19, 1865, Juneteenth, when some 2,000 Union troops arrived in Galveston Bay, Texas. The Army announced that more than 250,000 enslaved black people in the state were free by executive decree. This day came to be known as Juneteenth by the newly freed people in Texas. Okay. All this is true. Yes, sir. All right. The reason so they messed up. They didn't tell the people in Texas that they were actually free from previous months. Soon as the war was over, they didn't tell them, they didn't notify, they still had them. So this is what I want you to really think about. I don't want you to think about that it was only a couple months from 4/9 to 6/19. So you're talking about 2 months. I want you to think about the number of lashes. I want you to think about the number of improper food. I want you to think about the number of times that you had to say massa. That's what I want you to think about. All those things that happened while you were a slave still went on for another 2+ months. That's the issue that I have with this. And they're saying, instead of saying, hey, we should celebrate the fact that we made the right decision and freed all the slaves on either January 31st, the actual signing of the 13th, or the ratification on December 9th, pick one of those, because that's the big one. But no, we messed up and we left them still enslaved for another couple months, so now we want to celebrate this. Now we want to give this as a federal holiday. Now we want to say, I'm sorry for this. That's my issue with today's holiday. And I understand you got to get something, but then I also look at, we went over emancipation, doesn't do anything. We went over the 13th Amendment, what it did. It actually freed the slaves. Yes, they put that bondage clause in there, but I'm not really going to get into I'm going to leave that alone. 13th Amendment freed the slave, ratified January 31st, December 9th. Very important. Then we have Juneteenth. Juneteenth, a lot of people didn't spread. I don't remember talking about this in school. I don't remember talking about this in college. And I went to Mississippi Valley State University. They didn't talk about Juneteenth. It wasn't a popular thing. It rose over the years. I graduated 21 years ago from college. 21 years ago. And they didn't talk about it then. But now it's an issue. Now we're trying to celebrate. But so here's my thought. And anybody can chime in if you want. I mean, I wasn't really doing this I'm doing this for education tonight. And if nobody wants to come up and talk about these things with me, that's fine. Like I said, I'm giddy talking about this stuff. You got to remember, there are certain legislators, and we're going to keep it at that. See, here, okay, fine. There are certain legislatures that would not give a dime to anybody of color, brown, black, yellow. They would not give a dime, but they signed over this legislation as, never heard talk about it. Okay, that's what I'm saying. But now it's a federal holiday. And it's such a funny federal holiday because of where it's placed. Just look at where it's placed. This is strategic to give mental relief to people. Because if you were to put it either in, just think about the other two involving the 13th. You can't put it in December 31st because we just can't. January 1st is a holiday. January 18th or so is a holiday. So you're telling me another 2 weeks later we have 3 federal national holidays in the month of January. You can't do it in February. Can't do it in December because we just finished Thanksgiving. And then you have basically 2 weeks off in December now that whether people will take the time off because you got Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve. So you can't have 4 holidays in December. So we want to show some love. So let's put this in June. What's in June? Father's Day. That's not a real holiday. Okay. What else we got? Before June, we got Memorial Day. Yeah, but that's for something else. What about 4th of July? It's kind of close, but it's not. It's still, but we don't have to count it because it's not in July. Okay. And what's the holiday after that? Labor Day. Okay, that's the end of August, 1st of September. Hey, let's put it right here. Let's put it right here that Juneteenth means 19. Hey, sounds great to me. Let's put it so that it's observed if it's not on the day, because that's you got to look at it. They made sure that you're gonna get a day off and paid for it. But not only will you get a day off, everybody will get a day off. Everybody will get paid for this day, whether they believe it or not. Because if we're having a conversation about reparations, we got people who don't look like me saying they don't want to pay for it because they didn't enslave people. They don't want to pay taxes for that because they weren't in this country. But yet, you're in this country now, and you get this day off. Banks are closed, post office closed, and you get paid for it. I just want to let you let that sink in. There's everything I just said. So that's why I'm not that happy about it. I'm not going to change my skin. I'm not saying that I'm not a black man, by no means. But what I am saying is just pay attention to the context clues of the information and the choices that are made. Oh, I got one more thing. Let's see here. Any questions? So why celebrate it now, June 16, 2021? It's always meant the 19th, but I think that was like the 19th at the time was, I can look it up, but I think the 19th at the time in 21, when the first year it was enacted. Remember, if anybody can remember, they had just signed a bill like 2 or 3 days before, and then they said, this is a federal holiday. And then they were like, hold on, we're off? So yeah, we should do it on February 12th. Please explain, Faye. I'm not picking. I just want to know the significance of February 12th. We're always celebrating it here in Kansas. 3 different towns basically know it wasn't taught in school, but we learned it in our BSU club, church, etc. Hi from LA. Hi. It's only what 7:16. He's a Leo, De Janeiro.
Hey.
Good evening. Good evening, ladies.
So,
Hey,
hey guys. I said, let me put on the light.
hey.
Hi. I said February 12th, I think because of the ratification um, with New Jersey and Maryland, I think in Delaware, they were the last. Which states were the last to formally adopt the 13th Amendment?
Oh, I don't. I've never really got into that because I know some of them still like somebody said Delaware was still 1901,
Yeah, 1901, February 12th.
but they still weren't holding slaves. So I mean, but so there's another historic event that happened after the. There's actually two major things that I mean, if y'all want to talk about, but did you have a comment? And I'll get into that
Okay.
because like I said, I'm totally ecstatic about this, and I if I could find more stuff to talk about like this, I would never talk about relationships again because y'all went crazy. This is exciting. Having a woman tell me that her standards are too high and she can't find any man available, even though her standards can't meet even Jesus walking. But yet she wonder why she's single. I'd much rather talk about history.
I'd rather talk about this.
I- I'd rather talk about this because because I never grew up hearing about Juneteenth.
Neither.
I grew up in
So,
the East Coast. They didn't teach us this.
I went, actually went to school. I went to school 4 years on the East Coast. I was in Dale City, Virginia, which is a suburb of Woodbridge. So I was in the DMV, and I went
I know
to
where
Bevel.
Woodbridge is. Yeah, I lived in Nova.
Okay, I went to Bevel Middle School and Garfield High School, and
Okay.
they
No,
did
they
not teach.
don't. And that's Virginia Commonwealth. And I lived in Massachusetts and I went to college there and I took African American history, so I learned it from just that because I signed up for an elective, but no, I wouldn't have known about it in general. So,
Who founded the celebration? Celebration was those slaves that, when they finally got freed out of those 250,000, they were so happy. They were like, "Man, we're finally free." So it just kind of rolled from there. From those people that were in the Galveston, Houston area, when he came and said, "Hey, we're finally free," that's who started the celebration.
hold on.
And they rolled from year to year, and then it got bigger and bigger. It wasn't big other places. And then when people found out that people were celebrating, black people were celebrating the fact that they were free, they didn't really say, "Hey, what are you freed from?" "Oh, no, you got the
Right.
short stick." I'm shocked that we're not teaching this in the U.S. I assume it's part of the current curriculum, though. No, ma'am, it is not part of the current curriculum. Um, they actually want to take,
Everything
uh,
out.
yeah, Miss Michelle organized. They actually want to take more things out that were involved in Black history because they're ashamed of what the things that they did to the people of color in
hey,
America.
Tasha.
So they want to take out as much stuff
Absolutely.
as they can. Modern
It's
day. I mean,
things like,
uh, I don't know. I gotta look that up. I understand what you're saying. No, Michelle,
But I
yeah,
think
Delaware,
it's so
Kentucky, Mississippi.
sad
critical
that
race.
on that holiday, so much is happening. I was just telling them on Juneteenth, so many shootings is happening. It was a time not too long ago we couldn't even celebrate Juneteenth here in where I live at.
Mm.
They had to stop it because of all the the shootings and the killings, and I think that that's awful. And it's only because to me, when you're uneducated, then you can't appreciate.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is why I'm loving this here.
Okay, so there's a couple other things I want to talk about. I would somebody tell me. I mean, please verify for me. Trump was the president when they passed the bill, and then because Biden didn't sign it. I'm sorry, I don't believe that Biden signed it. I'm not a Trump fan, but I think that it was he started the bill when they brought up to bring it up, and then it was finally signed and went
This has
into
been
order.
this has been a long fight. It was before Trump.
Okay.
It was before Trump. It was before all the president. This was an ongoing bill that they were trying to pass for a while. To my knowledge, I think it was a good 10, 15 years.
Okay. So it just happened to happen in 21.
Yeah.
2021.
It wasn't a Biden or a Trump per se. It was just time. It's like MLK birthday. It was introduced earlier on, and then by the time, you know what I mean? So I think it was the same situation from when I looked at it. Because I worked federal government, and I remember I was like, "Are we off?" And they couldn't answer. They were like, "Not sure what day." And then what day did it fall under last year? I'm trying to remember. It was on a weekend,
But they
and I think
observed
it was
Monday.
probably a Saturday,
But they observed.
and they gave us Friday off. I think something like that. So no one knew how to apply it at that because it was so last minute, like you said. I think a day, 2 days before.
Right. I remember that very vividly
I
because my
remember
mom.
because I was
I
lost.
work. I work for myself. I own my own company, so it didn't.
It say Biden signed the
He
bill.
did sign it. I'm saying 2 days before it, though. It was like
Okay. Yeah.
Biden signed it, but it was in motion prior to Biden's term.
So the
And
Juneteenth is a federal holiday. Sorry, I'm not American. Yes, now it is. As of
oh,
2021,
she's Canadian. Yes, last year. Yep. Was it last year or the year before?
year before. This is
It's,
23.
this is our third one,
Yeah,
right?
this is the third.
Oh, it feels like a second one. I don't know why.
Who?
So the next
Let's.
major event that happened um, after they ended slavery was Reconstruction. That is when the North came into the South and enforced the fact that now the slaves are free. And this is when you saw all the black legislators come into office because of Reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem was they didn't want to stay forever. You have displaced members of the North that are in the South. So what they did was they stayed until 1877.
Mm-hmm.
So all these black legislators, when they said the senators, congressmen, like they've never been, but they came and they were there for Reconstruction. But when they ended Reconstruction with the deal, or that, I want to say it was, I'm gonna look it up here in a second. But what they did was say, hey, look, they had another election after U.S. Grant was finished with his 2 terms, and they said, hey, look, we're not going to go for this. We're gonna cut your supplies off. We're not gonna go back to war, but let's talk about this like gentlemen. And they said, all right, well, look, you pull your people out the South, the North, you pull your people out the South, stop this Reconstruction, and then we'll let you have this president. So they said, okay, cool. They shook hands.
Mm-hmm.
They ended Reconstruction. They pulled all the soldiers out of the South, and then this is when Jim Crow and the sharecropping started. And this is when it got really bad for black people because Jim Crow was below impoverished servitude. It was worse than indentured servitude because you had to work the land and you had to pay the owner of the land for his tools and the whatever you sharecrop. You only got to keep it like maybe 10% of what you earn, and then that's why all the black people in the South, they were so poor because they were sharecroppers. They didn't have any other trade. Where could you have learned? Because you were already on the plantation.
Mm-hmm.
So Jim Crow, when it started, and people start slowly going to the north. Well, shit, I can't eat, I can't live. I'm gonna go to the north. That's when the Great Migration came in the first part of the turn of the century. Yes, I'm missing comments. I'm sorry, but yeah. So Reconstruction, then immediately following that is Jim Crow, and Jim Crow was to enforce the fact that now the Union is gone and they can treat black people bad again.
Ooh.
Hopefully, former teacher and activist largely credited with rallying others behind the campaign and Juneteenth federal holiday. Okay. See how many organizers recognize federal holidays, so just for federal employees. Yeah. I mean, because like you can't make it like I work for a trucking company. You can't make them say that they got to pay me for the day.
Right.
It's federal or state that's on people who have to observe it. There's a lot to unpack here. Yeah, that's why I'm doing it. Here's the grandmother of the movement. I don't like your name. It scares me. I'm not gonna read it though. Opal Lee is alive and well. She is the grandmother of the movement. I copied and pasted from the article about the holiday. Blue, you come from sharecroppers. I know I do. On both sides of my family, because
Hey, Michelle.
uh, they had skills after they were free, just couldn't apply them to a point, but not that many. I mean, because if you could, like, just like how it was illegal if you're in 1830, 40, 50, 60 to read, like you got your ass beat if you could read. They did
If
not
yeah.
do that because the
Mm-hmm.
to be able to learn, they knew that you would eventually be able to do better, and they didn't want you to do better.
Facts.
I lived in
Uh,
DC, and they have Emancipation Day for the District of Columbia.
mhm.
So
I still don't just make that a state. I don't like the whole District of Columbia. It don't make any sense.
because oh gosh, you and your question. um,
I mean,
that's where that's where the White House, the federal agencies are. It's more centralized. They need a spot.
I know, but
So
it doesn't make sense for the continuity, if that's a good word for it, of all the other states and all the other things. Because I understand, like, so a senator, their position makes sense to me. It's a 6-year term. You
yep,
only go for election every 6 years. A congressman's term does not make sense because you only work for maybe 6 months out of your 2-year term,
hmm,
and the rest of the time you're
for
fighting.
campaigning. Yeah.
So that doesn't make any sense to me. It
Uh,
sounds great. Like if you could
they,
be a sitting Congress.
the sad thing about it is the taxation without representation. So they're getting taxed, but they don't have a voting power. That's the only one I think is a big issue.
They had skills. Y'all really want to argue? Yeah, but no power and no rights to own land. They still had to sharecrop with no control over the produce pricing. I agree with that 100%. But only a very small amount had skills outside of doing crops and or hard labor. Like I mean, it's not that there wasn't that many blacksmiths and welders and carpenters. I mean, I take it back about the carpenters, but the blacksmiths and welders, there wasn't that many because they didn't want them to learn those trades. Freedom is illusion, but overworked and underpaid is real. Sometimes I think you're a troll, Will. You're my fundraising. I mean, I'm shit. Like sometimes I know, like he'll put a point different from mine, and the way he articulates it is different. Um, you got a new screen, Faye.
Yeah, I'd stop putting my pictures on IG.
Why?
Why?
Um,
Did something happen?
no, it's just the energy gets weird. I just think it's better that I put the mosque or something else.
Please follow me on YouTube. Subscribe. I put all my videos there. This will be on there. I add content there. Um, Old videos. I'm moving them
And
over.
I believe in the evil eye. I just need to um, just be careful of my social media usage. Like going on spaces that are positive, like yours, is my goal.
Please follow me on YouTube at Unfiltered Polo Blue. Again, youtube.com at Unfiltered Polo Blue. Give me a sec.
I'm gonna subscribe.
It's free, no cost. I'm just trying to get my subs up so I can eventually go live on YouTube where I can really have some influence. And I'm not going to take the messy relationship stuff over there. It's going to be positive information like this. It's going to be positive information about finances. It won't be anything. It won't be any
Yeah,
hard.
let's talk about
Good
like
night,
credit
Cal.
score, home purchasing, uh, recreational lifestyle, like, hiking. I mean, something that's like productive. Like if I can just I just want something that is meaningful and fulfilling. I'm learning to now like be careful about which spaces I go into. I got to treat it like the real world. Would I really hang out with this crew? Would I really, you
Mm-hmm.
know, encounter these type of personalities? Would I really like have anything in common? Is our mindset similar? No, then I'm not going to that space. So I'm going to treat it like that with
Mm-hmm.
Instagram. And it has to it has to be fulfilling. Like I get the relationship talks, but we don't talk about bigger things. Like, I mean, it's like we're worshiping relationships, like worship God, or put that energy into something else. I'm
Well,
just saying,
that's not my stance as far as
not
relationships.
you.
I
I'm just saying from my experience.
I realize there's a deficit in the communication between the two. We're not speaking the same language, kind of like the book "Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus." I'm not that far,
Hmm.
but as far as in the Black community, we struggle to say what you want, what I want, and let's come together and be in a relationship. It often fails, and your wants are not what I can provide, and my wants are not sufficient for you. My cousin says most sharecroppers were bound to the land. Grandma Shack, my grandmother, my mom, my dad's mother, said that the white man would come and take 80% of the crops, and felt that if they wanted to take more, they would take everything.
Or the land.
I mean, well, they didn't want to work the land, so they would leave the land after they harvest all the crops. They would take everything and leave it bare, and say, go raise some more crops." And sometimes, that's 3 or 4 months worth of work.
You
Hmm.
see, you're from Tennessee, right?
Born in
Um,
Mississippi, born
Mississippi. Um, you know, I'm from Boston, originally born and raised, and I moved around the East Coast, but I found Tennessee less racist to me than Boston. And I asked my dad, like, like, why is it so different here? Because you would think it's a Confederate state. And he would say that
Hey,
white
well,
white farmers, white farmers and black farmers, they actually own property, land. And the North, we never had that. Like,
well, hold on. I hear what you're saying, um, but if you only visited
no, they
Tennessee,
lived
and
there for 20 years now, 25.
I'm saying your personal experience, you're saying that you didn't think Tennessee was as racist as Boston, Massachusetts.
I think Boston is so racist. I think it's even more racist than
That,
Nashville, Tennessee, for example. Maybe it was just Nashville, not the outskirts.
I'm gonna let that marinate. But go ahead, Will. What you got? Good evening, sir.
What's going on, man? I'm at work feeding these people for Juneteenth.
He got the
all
dashiki on
right.
too.
Yeah, we have to
Let me
get
see
into
the dashiki.
character up here. That's
I
right.
I should be wearing something African.
You wearing your
I'm
skin, baby.
Yeah, that's
wearing my Jimi
all
Hendrix.
I got.
That's all I got.
Wearing your skin. All right, I'm gonna go feed these people. I'll holler at y'all later.
Go feed
All
them.
right.
Don't
Bye, Will.
Enjoy.
um, my cousin says you're right. He's born in Mississippi. We're born in the same small town, one on the Mississippi. He says you're right. I
You want to know why my dad's, what the reasoning is?
was that.
They had, so the North is very segregated, just as much as the South. And the South farmers had to they were kind of black or white. They're near each other's radius. And they just got more acquainted longer, I guess, than up north. I don't know. But there's something about the farmers and black farmers and white farmers being near each other. And I feel like there's that relationship that there was none in the north. Like we don't have that. But that's just a general perspective. Like I don't know beyond that, but
I would say that.
yeah, Boston whites are really trash.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Hmm.
Again, I've never been to Boston. I don't think I lost anything there, lost a dollar or anything, so I don't think I'll be visiting anytime soon.
Hmm.
So because I don't have anything that's lost there,
Hmm.
but I would say that the kinship amongst Southern men, which is where the relationship starts,
Hmm.
struggle of being farmers and not having much and always having to work and struggle. There
Correct.
became more of a kinship, but that don't mean that they
Yeah,
didn't think.
yeah. Yeah, I'm not dismissing it. No.
Okay.
No, I'm not
And,
dismissing that.
and Ken
Just
says
how
that they
about
were
this?
Boston
They're
Southern.
like discreet or in your face in the north, and in the south it's just it is what it is. If they're waving the Confederate flag, you know who they are. In
But
Boston,
but
they're not really showing it.
unfortunate part about the South and the Confederate flag, some people they wear it or show it, and then they'll say that it is heritage. This is a direct quote. It is heritage, not hate.
Yeah,
And
know that argument.
Yeah, I saw that documentary about Bill Russell and why he left Boston
Yeah,
after he.
Boston. Yeah, I mean, I'm proud to be from Boston. I don't want to trash Boston, like, but it is known for it, like, especially the Irish and even the Italian. But the Irish, to me, were more corrupt. If you watched a movie, what's it called? What's that movie? It's based on true story.
Are you talking about the Departed?
The